Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So welcome everyone once again to the second chapter. I think we are in the fourth section now. So just a quick recap for what we have already done so far. So we saw that in second chapter, Arjun, continued to remain confused, and finally, his indecision leads to his surrender to Lord Krishna. And in the verse 7, we saw how Arjun actually accepts Krishna as his spiritual master or guide or guru, as we all may want to call it, where he accepts that he is confused and bewildered and requests Krishna to guide him. Then in the second section, we saw that Krishna starts explaining the Sankhya or the Jnana Yoga, where Krishna describes how this body is different from the soul, and soul is eternal, and again discussed various qualities of the soul and how the basically we keep changing our bodies like we change our clothes, and we are the spirit soul, and that's how basically Krishna kind of explains the science of body and soul in the second section. Then in the third section, Krishna actually starts talking about a lesser principle, which is just to like in terms of mundane. So Krishna says that even if you consider the mundane logic, right, whether that we just die and take birth, then also we all finally will perish. Basically, anybody who's taken birth will have to die at some point in time. And there he starts explaining the Sakaam Karma, which is what we discussed last time, where performing prescribed duties uh, leading to enjoyment. So when I say prescribed, means duties prescribed in Vedas. So those duties one actually performs, and by performing that duty, one enjoys life. So that's where Krishna says, if you win the war, then you rule this kingdom. If you die in this battle, which is as the Kshatriya, that is your duty, and so we discussed Swadharma also in that section. Then you basically go to heavenly planets. But by avoiding your duty as Kshatriya, you are leading to not only hell, but also akirti and ninda, so infamy and criticism. So that's where I think we ended, and that was basically the Sakaam Karma section, and that is again, as I'm mentioning, it is a lesser principle. That is not the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Now, what we are about to discuss is the core of Bhagavad Gita, and that's where you would see a lot of people, give commentaries and get confused. Also, a lot of people sometimes. It's called Nishkaam Karma Yoga or Buddhiyoga. So now in this section, Krishna will actually explain that how to avoid the reactions, okay, or avoid karma by performing one's duty with detachment from the results. And that's where I think and that's very very important to understand. It's little tricky also, but that's okay. I think as we progress into our discussion, hopefully things will be clear. So let's begin the Nishkaam Karma Yoga. So Krishna starts in the verse 38. Krishna says, Sukha Dukha Same Kritva Labha Labho Jaya Jayo Tato Yudhyaya Yujyasva Nevam Papama Vapsyasi. So he's saying, you fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, which is labha labho, labh ya alabh, jaya or ajaya. you know, victory or defeat, right? Sukha dukha, happiness or distress. By doing so, you shall never incur sin. So now again, I think this would look like a lofty, principle and difficult to live with. Uh, will I think anyways will understand as we go deeper into uh, spiritual life or spiritual path. This is what is the uh, kind of outcome of once somebody starts following the principles of Bhagavad Gita. So on a spiritual path, there is no consideration of happiness or distress. When you say personal happiness or personal distress, while all of us actually start our journey generally hoping to be extremely happy, and but as you progress, I think you will see that that consideration actually becomes a side point, not the main point. And on a spiritual path, everything actually is generally performed for the sake of a higher principle or for the sake of Krishna, and that is what uh, will not attract any reaction. So somebody who is actually acting for his own sense gratification, whether in any mode, in goodness or passion, it is subject to reaction. Only if somebody is fully surrendered, himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness, that is where uh, the reactions of those activities will not bind him. And I think this is again explained further. So this is from Bhagavatam, where it talks about देवर्षि भूताप्त नृणां पितॄणां न किंकरो नायमरणि च राजन् सर्वात्मनाय शरणं शरण्यं ततो मुकुन्दं परिहृत्य कृतं. So here it actually talks about, it says that, so we have the debts, right? And we discussed that in the past also, that we have debts of forefathers, we have debts of our parent, we are indebted to devatas, rishi and society for giving us so many things in this life. Now what exactly this verse actually means is that one who has given up all material duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda is Krishna, who offers shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, which is devatas, great sages, which is rishis, or ordinary living beings, relatives, family members, or forefathers also, because all these are part and parcel of the one supreme Lord. So that is where that is one understanding, and that's where that's why I'm saying that all the other duties are not applicable once somebody takes to the spiritual path. Now here he's saying, Krishna is saying that don't think about happiness or distress, right? Sukha dukha, gain or loss, labh alabh, victory or defeat, right? Be equipoised, do your duty responsibly, right? Now that is so that's again, this is the principle to be applied in life. Now how can we embrace this principle in our daily life is what we need to learn, and that's what I think some of verses today and in some few chapters also we'll learn those. Now in the verse 39, now Krishna is actually talking about that Buddhiyoga, that so far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study, right? It's like Sankhya philosophy or Sankhya or Jnana Yoga. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of the works. Now, why do we need to do this? So the principle is that work without fruitive results, right? What will it lead to? It will free yourself from the bondage of works, which is the karma, right? It will free you from the karma which you attract on every action we have. And again we'll discuss the karma principle also in a very very brief way in this chapter, which will be further expanded in the next 2-3 chapters. So What is Sankhya? Sankhya is basically which describe things in detail, and here the Sankhya philosophy refers to with the philosophy which describes the nature of soul and the body. And Buddhi Yoga, think of Buddhi Yoga as Nishkaam Karma Yoga. Okay, and these two will be further explained. So now, a lot of acharyas actually explain that Buddhi Yoga is same as Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. It's basically a combination of both, right? And let's see a few more verses, and which will become much even clearer. So verse 40 says, "In this endeavor, there is no loss." This is very important verse, huh? So just pay a little bit more attention here. In this endeavor, there is no loss. Which endeavor? Buddhi Yoga or Yoga. Okay. There is no loss or diminution, no destruction or decrease. Even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Even a little advancement. Okay. Swalpam. And no loss. So let's try to remember this, because this will help us cross a lot of other bridges. Now, when Krishna is referring here, Krishna is referring to Buddhi Yoga or Yoga. Okay. Now, activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. If somebody asks you what is the summary of entire 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, what I just said is the summary, which is activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. So anything which we do on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. So let's say you started doing your engineering or doctorate or CA, and if you leave it in between, and let's say again, if one dies, in between, then you can't start, in your next life with whatever papers you have cleared, right? Or you basically build some bank balance, you build a house and a family. Now again, the next birth, of course, you can't start, from where you left. So any material activity, will actually have to be completed within this life. But anything which is done on this path of yoga, it has a permanent effect, even though it is not finished. And therefore, the performer of such work is not at all at a loss, even if it is incomplete in this part. Even 1% work done in yoga actually bears permanent results. So that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. While the material activity, you basically have to start always from zero. So now, what is yoga? Right? That question, I'm sure anybody wants to reply on what is yoga?
Realization of self.
Yes, absolutely. Any other further addition like to that point? I mean, I think it is you are in the right direction, and I think kind of summarized also. But there is something which you can still add here. Anybody likes to add, or you want to add, Namit?
Maybe the union with the Supreme, the union of the self with the Supreme is yoga.
Yes, connecting. So I think, yeah. So I think you meant connecting. Yes, absolutely. So self-realization, which actually leads to this understanding, right? The self-realization का मतलब भी यही है, right? Connecting with God. So you are also right, Namita. So yoga means to join, yujya, right? Or connect. Now connecting with whom? Connecting with yourself first, and then like after knowing yourself or your true identity, connecting with the source or God. And yoga involves controlling of senses, it involves a lot of other things, but there is no loss actually in any of the yoga which we do. Now, understanding of yoga in general is that, right, pranayam, that is the yoga, or the hatha yoga practice, which is the most popular yoga. Now, yoga here is actually far more than just the physical exercises. Now, Buddhi Yoga is more clearly explained in chapter 10, as it is the direct, communion with the God, who is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. So we discussed that, right? That part, that how we are basically trying to connect back to God, but He is not out there in like skies or heavens only, right? He is also situated in the heart of everyone. But this communion or this connection with God does not take place without devotional service. So, therefore, somebody who is in the process of loving devotional service to the Lord will attain this stage of bhakti yoga, right, much faster than everyone else who is doing a different process, because you are also accessing the grace of Lord. Okay, so that's the important point, and that's why we keep like talking about Paramatma Swarup and all. So this is an easy path, okay, and then I'll explain more about this. So other paths are also, by the way, valid paths. There is nothing wrong in the other yoga. So now there would be discussion about each of these yoga in every future chapters. So let's say starting with Karma Yoga. So what is Karma Yoga? Anybody wants to just, I'm just like throwing this open. Anybody wants to explain any of this yoga?
So Karma Yoga is when you do the work that is assigned to you without expecting good, like without having any attachment to the results of the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Dhyan yoga is like meditation, and bhakti yoga is essentially chanting and thinking of Krishna and doing everything for Krishna. So if you're hearing for, like, you're hearing Krishna, Krishna's words or Krishna's about Krishna. If you're eating, then you're giving food to Krishna, then eating Krishna. So everything that you're doing is dedicated to Krishna. And Gyan Yoga is trying to like acquire that knowledge, but then the realization is the same, is realization of the super soul, and then Krishna, and then I think it boils down to Bhakti Yoga after attaining Jnana Yoga.
Absolutely. Perfect. Very well explained. So now in third chapter, there is a much detailed discussion about Karma Yoga, where one wants to connect with the God by work, work without being attached to the results, and that again will be kind of Nishkaam Karma Yoga there. Then Jnana Yoga is like connecting by acquiring knowledge about God, right, which will be explained in the fourth chapter. So which is like knowing about uh, the opulence of the Lord, or spiritual world, Prakriti, material world. Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Yoga is connecting by meditation, which is also Ashtanga Yoga, right? Which is explained more detail in the sixth chapter, where you basically have a proper asana, proper posture, then all those rules of yama niyama, pratyahar, ahar. So all those you follow all that, and that's the like through meditation, like which is where Dhruva Maharaj did the dhyana yoga to get darshan of Lord, and it will be described in 6th chapter. Bhakti yoga is connecting with God by reawakening our dormant love, right? Which will be explained from 7th chapter till the 12th, 13th chapter, I think. So 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 13th, yeah, 13th chapter. So almost 6 chapters are dedicated to Bhakti Yoga. And that is why the essence of Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga. Now think of it like this, okay? What is difference between Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga? Actually, Jnana Yoga is trying to acquire knowledge, right, about something. So I'll give you a list of example. Now it might appear a little superficial, but just entertain this thought. You want to know about a person in your house, okay? Now there is a process of knowledge. One is you start inquiring about that person. You ask, you see historical record, you'd see this, that, etc., etc. Then you will try to see whether how am I related to that person, right? So the little superficial, but just entertain this thought, right? Now you acquired all the knowledge. You figured, like, you did lot of work, studies, lot of book you studied, history about that family and that person and this and that, swabhav, nature, DNA, सब पता कर लिया. And you finally came to a conclusion that this person is my mother, okay? And this person is my mother, and I am acquiring knowledge about that person because you are not in relationship with that person. You are actually doing a lot of work to figure out that this person is my mother. Now the same thing can be done by love or by in relationship with that person. So you do simultaneously. It's not, I'm not saying you only just sentimentally have a relationship with a person, but you do have relationship also based on the knowledge given by somebody superior, okay? Let's say your father or your family member, that this person is related to you. Now one is that you start that relationship also, but you keep doing, again, so I use an example, halfway you could imagine that basically you were stranded, or somebody was came, he was, let's say, living in an orphanage, right? And then he start figuring out his lineage. Think of it like that, actually. So one is that you start interacting with that person and also acquire knowledge. So that process is much faster to reach to connect back to mother, or to, let's say, God here. Now Bhakti Yoga is the best. Why? Because it includes all of this. So Karma Yoga is, as Namita said, working for the pleasure of Krishna. Now Dhyana Yoga is when we chant Krishna's name, we meditate on Krishna's form. Like when we take darshan, it's actually a meditation. Like you just don't go घंटी बजाई, देखा इधर उधर, गुल्लक में पैसे डाले, प्रसाद लेके भागे. That is not meditation. Meditation, when you go to temple, you relish the form, the shringar of God. You relish, you enjoy seeing Krishna or the deities, and you appreciate the beauty of of God. So that is the meditation. And knowledge, as I already said, like ज्ञान और वैराग्य के से ही भक्ति actually goes up. So ज्ञान के बिना it will be sentimental. So that's where knowledge is very important, even in Bhakti Yoga. I think I saw somebody asking a question. We can take questions in the end because today we have a lot to cover. So in the first 1 hour, let me just try to complete this. I'm actually worried whether we'll be able to finish even this much also or not. So, on the point of uh, what is there, there is no loss, right, in this endeavor. Uh, so there is a story of Ajamil in sixth canto. So I'll just narrate this story. So Ajamil, and this will help you understand that no loss uh, in this yoga. So how to think about it. There was once a young Brahman. His name was Ajamil. He born in a very good family, and he was actually a very good character and conduct. He was mild, gentle person, right? Always truthful. He knew all the Vedic scriptures and very pure life. And Ajamil was very compassionate, to all living beings. He, respected his parents. He had young wife. Always chanted his prayers and mantras, and offered, respect to elders and his guru, etc. So he was living a proper, pure life. One day, on the request of his father, Ajamil actually went into the forest to collect fruits and flowers. But on the way home, he saw a very lusty, scene where a low class person was embracing and kissing a prostitute. Now they were drunk, and these people were singing and enjoying, without this thing. And when Ajamil saw this, his lusty desires actually in his heart awakened, and in the illusion he fell, and completely under illusion. But he was trying to remember the scriptures. He tried not to gaze at the woman. But he was struggling, right, on the lust, and his intellect actually was failing. And so this was the first encounter for him. Now in the days following, he actually kept thinking about the prostitute, and in a very short span of time he actually hired her as the servant in the house, and slowly he stopped. He basically uh, stopped all his brahminical principles, activities. And uh, then eventually he left his first wife, went to live in with this prostitute, and completely degraded into a lifestyle of cheat, drunkard, gambler. And he would basically become very cruel as well. So he basically, from a pure brahmanical life, pure life, he suddenly turned into a complete monster kind of a life, in Vedic terms. Now he started spending money on her, and all the money he needed from the father also he spent on gifts, etc. And now he was breaking all the regulation rules and regulations of holy scriptures, so he became completely unclean that way. Now over time, he actually fathered 10 sons through this prostitute. And his youngest son, he was named him Narayan, and he was he was a baby, and very dear to both the father and the mother. Now, and like, as like young child speaking broken language, appear very cute, and he was the closest to Ajamil. Now, uh, he was so attached with Narayan that he thought of nothing else. He always, he would not drink without before feeding Narayan. And while Narayan is name of God, for him it didn't mean anything, because it was like attachment for his son. But by this he kept talking, he kept saying the word Narayan, Narayan, Narayan all this while. Years passed, and Ajamil actually was getting old, and at the age of 88, you know he was still engaged in his own new world. Now in one night, while he was half asleep, he saw that three very fierce, ferocious looking individuals are holding ropes in their hands. And they are very long unruly hair, and extremely fearsome. And immediately Ajamil remembered that these are Yamadutas, right, angels of death, and they have come to take me now from here. And overwhelmed by terror, he cried out to his son, Narayan, come here, Narayan. He was so distressed at that time. Uh, and basically, while he was calling out to his son, immediately Vishnu Dutas, servants of Vishnu, came there. They they just looked like Lord Vishnu. Their complexion was dark blue. They had four arms, and they basically wore golden crown. They were exquisitely beautiful. They immediately approached Yamadutas and stopped them because they were trying to drag the soul of this Ajamil out of the body. Now Vishnuduta told Yamaduta that you can't take him to Yamaraj, and that's when the discussion between Yamadutas and Vishnuduta started. And Yamaduta said, "Who are you to prevent us? Because we are following the order of Yamaraj, and this guy is a very sinful man, and he needs punishment. He will go to hell. He left his parents. He's lived a life of cheat, cruel life, and he broke all principles, Vedic principles. So he needs deserves to be punished." Now Vishnu replied that Ajamil has already atoned not only for sins performed in this life, but also performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayan. Although he was calling his son's name, he nevertheless uttered the four syllables Narayana. And so then Vishnu explained that simply by chanting, helplessly Lord's name, one can be freed from the sins. But there was a lot of discussion which happened between these two, and Ajamil actually has been witnessing all this. Then this Yamadutas went to Yamaraj, and they explained this embarrassing situation that we went, but then we were stopped by these Vishnu Dutas. Then Yamaraj told them, you should never go near the devotees of Krishna. Because they always remember and chant Krishna's name. So only bring to me the people who have never taken God's name. So that was Yamaraj saying. Now Ajamil realized this, right, that he's been given a second chance, and Vishnu actually has really helped stopped him going into hell. Now Ajamil soul actually went back to his body, and Vishnu left. Now this was the time when Ajamil actually took this devotional life seriously. Now when he heard the glorification of God, he was now perfectly clear about what he has to do in life. So now he basically repented also that I have led a sinful life, and because I have identified myself with my body and my senses, I actually was subjected to so much of sense gratification, and to enjoy that I did so many pious and impious acts, and this is that is my material bondage. So immediately he went to city of Haridwar near Ganges, and then he stayed in a Vishnu temple. He executed the bhakti yoga, the process of devotional service. He controlled his senses, mind, and fully applied his mind on the form of the Lord. And after 12 years, uh, same Vishnuta came in a golden plane, and took Ajamil back to spiritual world. And so this is the result of perfection in Krishna consciousness. And so I think if somebody faithfully and inoffensively chants the holy name of the Lord, there is no doubt that he will go back to the spiritual kingdom. Now in this story, of course, Ajamil actually took Narayan name, right? But it may so happen that by the time we die, or any of the devotees die, they may not be like that sharp in senses, right? There could be disease, there could be some other disability, etc. Now what happens to those people? So for those, Krishna has already, clarified that people who can't remember me, who have basically have chanted my name all through the life, and for some reason, for because of disease or disability, they can't remember me. I remember them at the time of death. So that is the verdict, which is the given in the next few chapters. So that is why I think what we do all through our life culminates into what we desire at the time of death, which decides our next destination. So that is the process of life, birth, and liberation. Uh, Now, so there is lots about chanting of holy names of Lord. Now, sometime we may not know the power, or we may not fully, like we may not have full faith in the power, right, of holy names. So for that, I think it is said that even if a person is unaware of the potency of a certain drug or medicine, right, and if he or she still takes that medicine, the medicine will work, right? So even without his knowledge about the potency of the medicine. So that is how the names of lords are so pure and transcendental that even with little faith it helps, without faith also it works, and if you have faith and one actually consciously try to call out Lord, then of course it will have its full effect. So that was the wonderful story of Ajamil, which is very very encouraging for people who are on the path of spirituality. Now we can, yes. So this is what was mentioned in the verse 40. Uh, in this endeavor, Bhakti Yoga, which is the endeavor of Bhakti Yoga, there is no loss or diminution, and even little advancement. So whatever we have done so far in life, that will help us. So whatever we may have done, let's say even if let's say I die today, whatever little bit advancement I would have done, or little bit work in my spiritual life, I'll start from there in next life. So that much guarantee is given completely. So even if whatever because of my bad karma, even if I go into animal life or any other life, then also I'll start from, I may become a dog in a devotee's house, or a cow in in a devotee's goshala or something. I'm just saying, so you start from where you actually left. This is I was telling what is the currency which you can carry, right, even from this birth to the next birth. So this is the only currency we have. Yeah, so I think one more point I would make here is, there is a lot of discussion about austerity, charity, vows, and many other pious activities, right, which one should do, which helps you neutralize the karma or the bad karma, right? But these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. Huh? This is very very important point. So a lot of the times, like we ask ourselves, so this question comes that just be a good person. समझ रहे हो? Like just do charity, just be nice with people, no problem. Like one should be living that life. But just by charity, your material desires don't go away, right? But if one starts to like sincerely the process of devotional service, then he is immediately freed from all contaminations. So this thing will become clearer and clearer as you basically grow further, and like when we read more about this, because sometimes you would wonder, and that how come these people कैसे रह सकते हैं? Like, so and Abhishek and Avril can appreciate, like we know the Jain Munis, right, and like they live such a austere life and so much hardships, and Like I can't even imagine, like somebody touching my hair, right? Like this, like like even little bit, and like they do so much of austerity. How do they do that? Because they are in that, they are in the process of devotional service, and in that process, uh, the lower principles or the lower taste actually don't attract them, and that is important. So I think one cannot artificially imitate anyone. ऐसा नहीं है कि आज मैं I just leave all my clothes and suddenly I'll become uh, like Jinendriya, right? Like I'm just Jitendriya that way. That does not happen. No? The process is inside out. That once from your heart, and you like basically you start the process, you purify your mind, you strengthen your intelligence, you start getting the taste, the spiritual taste. That is where somebody leaves all the lower taste of senses. Okay, so that was the first part of today's discussion. Now the next 5-6 verses are about Vyavasayatmika Buddhi and Vedic Karma Kanda. Okay, so let us next 12 minutes, let me try to cover as much as possible. So Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekehe Kurunandana Bahushakahi Anantasya Buddhayo Vyavasayinam. Those who have one-pointed intelligence are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one, O beloved child of Guru. The intelligence of those who are irresolute has many branches of action and unlimited desires. So now what is meant by this is the best intelligence is focused, right? One-pointed. And among all types of intelligence, the intelligence concentrated on Bhakti Yoga is best. Such Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is the strong faith that devotional service will elevate one to the highest perfection of life. So that is the important point here. The devotional service, so till the time one has that faith, right, one will keep experimenting with something or the other, sometimes confused, sometimes believe, sometimes faith, sometimes faithless, believer, non-believer. So all that will going on till the time we reach that strong faith that this process is best for me. That's what is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. So one pointed, many branched, right? So, and we need to use intelligence in yoga, right? That is how we basically progress or grow. Now, I think I already explained you that the people, like when you say many branches, we look for pleasures at various places. We look for happiness in various places through various sense gratification. Not trusting one process, always experiment. That is money branch. And when somebody is attached to bhoga and aishwarya, which is what I think will come in next verse, one cannot have one pointed intelligence. So we have so much distractions. So I'm just telling you many branch. So Vyavasayatmika is focused, and the second one is many branched. So let's say somebody is preparing for exams. Now you need focused intelligence and mind on studies. At that time, if somebody is busy in gaming, Insta, WhatsApp, YouTube, then that is many branched, and that does not yield good results then. Now, what are the obstacles to one-pointed intelligence or Vyavasayatmika Buddhi? Desire for sense enjoyment and opulence. And we'll discuss that don't be unintelligent followers of Vedas. So I think today we will do little bit of deeper understanding, because we discussed Vedas, right? Vedic principles, Vedic life, 4 Vedas, then Upanishads and Puranas and all that. So now today we'll just discuss very little bit. So don't focus on the sense enjoyment processes given in Vedas. but focus on yoga, which we just discussed. Yoga is yujya, connect. So now, men of small knowledge, okay, now this Krishna is saying, okay, not anybody else, are very much attached to the flowery words of Vedas. So Ved ko we consider as like not supreme, but very very high, right? Like we all want to live Vedic life. Vedas, are the manuals and all the details are given. So now Krishna is little bit bashing Vedas here. So just be very very careful and see the essence. That if somebody is saying Vedas are useless, then something else is coming out of it then. So Vedas recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, bhoga aishwarya, matlab, they say that there is nothing more than this. So now people have desires for sense enjoyment and opulence, right? We know that, right? Like that is the general need. In Vedas, there are many sacrifices recommended for elevation to heavenly planets, such as, let's say, Jyotishma sacrifice is there. Then there is many other sacrifices which are mentioned, which actually leads a particular result. like पुत्र प्राप्ति का एक होता है, नाम बोल रहा हूँ मैं, जो दशरथ महाराज ने किया था. Similarly, there are some multiple 16 सोमवार है, बहुत सारे there are many detailed rituals. So so anybody who is desiring to go to heavenly planets must perform this sacrifice, right? But thinking that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom, that's wrong. And so that is where that's where Krishna is trying to clarify. Okay. So what is the unintelligent followers of Veda doing it wrong? Because Vedas actually are meant for gradual elevation of general populace, right, in consciousness, slowly towards better birth, and finally to achieve the supreme destination. Because it's not easy for everyone to directly follow the process of yoga, because yoga is tough. I mean, as you would realize, that it is extremely tough to follow the process, because it requires so much of yam, niyam, and so many other things. So now, what Bhagavatam actually says in 11th canto about this is, as long as one is not satisfied by fruitive activity. Fruitive activity means expecting result of any activity. That is like the desire is, the activity is done with a desire to achieve a certain result. And is not awakened his taste for devotional service by hearing and chanting the name of Supreme Lord, one has to act according to the regulative principles of Vedic injunctions. So let's say, what is the regulative principle of Vedic injunction? Let's say Shraddh, Tarpan, Pitrapaksh, right? Or doing a certain, sanskar, right? We do so many sanskars from birth till death. All these are Vedic injunctions or principles which we all must, follow, because that actually helps us elevate into a better life. But if somebody is fully surrendered to devotional service, then these regulations don't apply to such devotee. So again, there are many other facilities given in Vedas, which I am not going into now. But my point is that if one is following the path of Bhakti Yoga, then Vedic principles are actually lesser principle for them, for lower taste. So here again, verse 44. भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया प्रहत चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि समाधो न विधीयते. In the mind of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment, and material opulences, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So this is again, I think the same thing which we discussed, that what is the impediment on Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. So Bhoga and Aishwarya, most people are struggling to attain these two: sense enjoyment and opulences. Now, anybody who is running after this two things, they will not be able to focus or have a fixed what do you call it mind. So he cannot attain samadhi, or he will not have resolute purpose. Samadhi means fixed mind. When the mind is fixed for understanding of self, it is said to be in samadhi. So samadhi is not possible, for somebody who is, looking for sense enjoyment more or opulence. So that is where, it is mentioned. That's why you see, generally spiritual practitioners, simplify their life. Most of the serious ones, you'd see much simplified thought process and lifestyle. Now, verse 45, this is beginning of another big topic, which I don't think we'll be able to do today, because there is lots to discuss here. And I think in the interest of time, what I can do is, let me just read this one and then I'll stop here. So Tregunya Vishaya Veda Nistre Gunyo Bhava Arjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvastho Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject matter of three modes of material nature. O Arjun, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So we all know the three modes of material nature, teen gun, sattva, rajasa, tamas. So we can do a little bit more discussion in the next one, and there is lots and lots of discussion in 14th chapter anyway. The whole chapter is about this three gunas. So we can stop here for questions, if that is okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare